In the village of Lindås, in the Swedish county of Småland, you'll find the Stenberg Flygt factory. Seen here in 1969, this was one way of reaching the factory, with the company's own Cessna aircraft using a landing strip in the middle of the factory site. The company had been taken over in 1968 by the American multinational ITT Corporation. The history of Flygt begins in 1901. Since the 19th century, this thriving little community in the county of Småland had been developing a range of industrial activities along the Lyckeby River rapids. Peter Alfred Stenberg first came here in 1901 and took over a derelict engineering workshop and foundry. His intention was to continue his operations as locksmith and mold maker for the nearby glassworks, and he traded under the name of Lindås Glass Factory, New Ironworks and Mechanical Workshop. Business prospered and expanded, as did the Stenberg family. Within a few years of moving to the region, the family had grown to 10 sons and 1 daughter. The first workshop building had a floor area of 170 square meters, and the original workforce comprised 3 people. This is Peter Alfred touring the factory site with his sister in 1940. The factory made molds for the glass industry of Småland, as well as a wide variety of iron products and castings. In 1917, Peter Alfred handed over the operations of the company, now trading under the name Lindås Gjuteri and Formfabriks Aktiebolag, to his 3 sons, Tage, Agne, and Erik. This is Tage Stenberg picking the flour. Peter Alfred Stenberg passed away in 1941 at the age of 88. In 1922, Hilding Flygt, a 57-year-old engineer, set up the Flygt Pump Company in Stockholm. By 1929, he was looking for a factory with a foundry that could be used for producing his central heating pumps. In the 1930s and 1940s, the Flygt Stockholm offices were here in Kungsgatan, or King Street. An advertisement in one of the national newspapers in 1929 put Hilding Flygt in touch with the Stenberg brothers, and production of Flygt pumps then began in Lindås. By 1930, 200 pumps of the universal and normal type had been manufactured, and Flygt pumps soon became the factory's leading product. By now, the factory employed 35 people. The following scenes are from a film, A Working Day at Stenberg's, produced in 1941. The regular working day began at 7 a.m. and ended at 5 p.m. The foundry was in a state of feverish activity. Preparations were being made here for casting the pump casings for horizontal and vertical central heating and service pumps. Engine blocks were cast here, and a variety of other parts for motor vehicles. Castings for the Hercules fire engine were made in this very workshop. Work in the foundry was hard, dirty, and noisy. In 1901, the first Lindås resident to be employed by the factory was Carl Bank. He was with the company for 56 years and had the distinction of producing the mold for the first Swedish Coca-Cola bottle after World War II. These are the workshops. The pumps in the yard are sewage and groundwater pumps for dry installation. In 1938, the workshop floor area had been extended by 600 square meters. The factory ran at full capacity during the Second World War. The number of employees had doubled. During this period, the company also manufactured artillery shells and tank wheels for the Swedish Armed Forces. Many of the pumps produced were also destined for the military. This is the Carl Erik engine being assembled. It was an inboard engine for small boats, and a total of almost 3,000 units were manufactured. The assembly of a vertical central heating pump, a major innovation, was unveiled in 1933. Before delivery, the pump was painted by hand and the rating plate was then fitted. Karen Ruskvist, the cashier, shares a joke with a colleague in the office. Erik Stenberg was the factory designer, while Tage Stenberg was factory manager and chief executive. The working day of 1941 is over. Sixten Engelsson, the chief engineer in Stockholm, seen here with the Stenberg brothers in Lindas, succeeded in designing a reliable, electrically driven dewatering pump. Production of this pump began in 1948. With its simplicity and reliability, the submersible dewatering pump revolutionized the task of draining construction sites and mines in all corners of the world. Here's a scene from a Flygt film that was shot during the early 60s.
Water is a big problem at construction sites. For effective drainage, you have to lower the groundwater level with the much-needed help of pumps. A submersible pump can be placed where the water is deepest and then operates without further monitoring and control. A dry-installed suction pump, on the other hand, is limited by the suction height, usually 7 to 8 meters. Some construction is necessary for the pump to stand on, and there's constant threat of leaking suction tubes and bottom valves. This is where the submersible pump becomes so much more cost-effective, needing no special infrastructure or mounting.
These are a few of the workplaces that use the new Bibo range of drainage pumps. The Bibo range of pumps grew rapidly in sizes. The two B200L pumps seen here each have a capacity of almost 10,000 liters per minute. The emergence of the submersible drainage pump marked the beginning of successful export activities. A worldwide distribution network was developed, using the company's own subsidiaries and independent agents. The growing need for efficient sewage pumping in cities and communities led to the development of the submersible sewage pump. This development was undertaken in 1956 by the design department in Stockholm under the management of Sixten Engelsson. The principle of the submersible pump enabled town and city planners to build compact pump sumps and sewage networks below ground level. These pumps quickly made the company into a world leader in the field of sewage pumping. A Flygt service technician pays a routine visit to a pump station somewhere in Sweden in the 1960s. The submersible sewage pump is easy to lift from its discharge connection and is carefully flushed before the impeller and oil housing are inspected. The versatility of Flygt submersible pumps soon became apparent. In 1961, they made a vital contribution to the refloating of the Vasa warship in the Stockholm archipelago. This was an extremely difficult operation.
The 24th of April 1961 was an historical day. For the first time, a complete museum was to be raised from the sea. The salvage fleet was crammed with reporters for press, radio, and television, plus thousands of invited dignitaries. And then, at exactly 3 minutes past 9, the first piece of wood appeared above the surface. But there remained much work to be done, the final outcome of which was by no means certain. The Vasa had to be raised in one piece and quickly, so that archaeologists and technicians could take action to prevent disintegration from the effects of sun and air. But if she were lifted higher, the inner water pressure would be excessive and burst her open. Salvage leaders decided to float the Vasa by a pumping operation. 3 submersible contractors' pumps were taken aboard, but only 2 were put into service, since they operated at maximum capacity, 2,200 gallons a minute. Archaeologists used smaller pumps to spray the wood, preventing cellular disintegration and cracking. Raising continued at an even tempo, and perfect equilibrium was maintained. Frogmen kept an eye on the equipment.
In the same year the Vasa was refloated, the company celebrated its 60th anniversary at the Ronneby Brunn Hotel. From left to right, the owners, Eric, Agne, and Tage Stenberg. 7 years later, the family company joined the International Telephone and Telegraph Corporation, better known as ITT. At the time, the American multinational conglomerate was one of the world's 10 largest and most powerful companies. So what was the structure of the successful Swedish family company when it joined the ITT family in 1968? The company's head office in Solna, outside Stockholm, was the home of a large and highly qualified design department with its own well-equipped pump laboratory. Being tested here is the B-2250 drainage pump, launched in '68. In the Lindas factory, the new owners invested in expanding the production facilities. This included upgrading the foundry and building new assembly workshops and stores. Modern production methods were introduced. A new electric motor workshop was set up to enable Flygt to produce its own electric motors. By the 1970s, more than 90% of the production volume was exported to almost every country on Earth. Here are a few examples. A quick Flygt pump delivery to a customer in Le Mans, France, also site of one of the many sales companies in Europe. A service technician is on his way to an important pump station, sold by the Flygt agent in Dubai. North America became the biggest and most important market for Flygt pumps. This is the U.S. office in Norwalk, Connecticut. Here, one of the Flygt representatives is inspecting a pump station that lifts wastewater over one of Florida's many canals. From 1976 onwards, only submersible pumps have been manufactured in the factory, with circulation pumps no longer being made. In 1978, new offices were officially opened in Lindas during a factory visit by the King and Queen of Sweden, who were then on a tour of Kalmar County. In terms of numbers, sewage pumps became the biggest Flygt product group. The millionth sewage pump was produced in 1995. The pump was shipped to one of the many sewage treatment stations in Miami, Florida. The 2 millionth pump left the factory just 3 years later in 1998. This BIBO is being assembled before delivery to the celebrations marking the 50th anniversary of the submersible drainage pump. The pump was one of 5 ordered by Boliden Mineral. The 86-year-old Sixten Engelsen is seen here with his son during one of his last appearances. As we once departed Lindas in our Cessna in 1969, today we fly over an international success story, founded in equal measure on the entrepreneurship of the Småland region in particular, and on Swedish inventiveness in general.